Today we welcome on former Saracens, Bath, Quins and Saints front row Nick Auterac to look back on his career and discuss post-retirement projects in music. Also stick around for the end of the episode where we review England's autumn international squad announcement. Welcome back to the Rugby Paper podcast. Our attention remains, well, it's a little bit dotted around today, but it remains in England. The autumn international squad announcement has happened this week, so we'll sort of discuss that at the end. The ongoing Gallagher Premiership remains the crux of both that discussion and potentially some of our discussions today. But joining us today is someone with an extensive Premiership track record and now a particularly interesting post-rugby life. He's got 4 Premiership clubs under his belt: Saracens, Bath, Quins and Northampton. From memory, our first front rower to come on in quite some time, and I have to say front rowers always make for a slightly entertaining episode one way or another, because to quote a front rower, they're just they're all off balls. They're just a bit weird. Nick Auterac, how are you?
Yeah, no, very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, well, it's nice to hear that I'm the first front row that you sort of went to get on. So that's made my day a bit, that, because like you said, we're a bunch of oddballs, the front row. I think if you ask anyone in rugby who were the weirdest on the pitch, and you'll probably always get the same response as saying front row, props especially.
It was Jake Woolmore that said that, and I mean, he's always said that it's because they were fat at school and had to develop a personality.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. How are you? How are things? Obviously, you sort of mapped out your retirement in an interview a couple of years ago where you said you wanted to work in music for 10 years, become a celebrity, and then be a celebrity chef. How's that going?
I did, yeah. That was one of the Scottish papers when I think I was up in Edinburgh. I sort of said in my 20s I want to play rugby. In my 30s I want to make music, hopefully to a level that I can kind of become a celebrity. And then in my 40s I can become a celebrity chef, because I don't really want to be a chef and do the hours that they do. So I finished at 31. How am I now? 30. I finished when I was 31. And since then it's been just over a year, and I've really thrown myself into the music world, which I love, absolutely love. It's been a completely different sort of landscape of life. From the people that I meet, from what I do every day, is completely and entirely different, which is it hasn't got boring yet. So I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, hopefully it's sort of I keep the enthusiasm there, and I can hopefully do something quite cool in the music world. It'll be nice to do.
Matt Stevens was a musical talent, I seem to remember.
He was.
Sing.
He did, yeah, on that one of those celebrity pop idol sort of shows. That was back in the day. It didn't take much for him to get him singing. We'd have some team socials, and he'd sort of do some rendition of something, and I don't think boys really enjoyed it too much, but I think there wasn't really a choice. He just sort of blurted out whatever.
You're generalizing from the particular there, or what?
He was quite a character. Good singer though. Good singer, big sort of big lad, big lungs, good singer.
And Marcos Ajerza, if that's the right pronunciation, was a seriously good pianist.
Really?
Even with those fingers. I mean, he was a classically trained pianist.
I didn't know that, actually. Yeah, I had a few scuffles with him in my time early in the days of when I first started out when he was at Leicester, but I didn't. Good knowledge. Yeah, I'm quite intrigued now. I might go have a look see what I can find.
So he was a piano player and a piano shifter.
Yeah, he was a big old dude. He was a big goose, that guy. Yeah, big guy.
I suppose when that interview was published, Nick, you were 29, and it sort of said that you had quite a few years left under your belt. Obviously, the shelf life for a prop tends to be a little bit longer. Obviously, that ended up being one and a half more years. Talk us through that final year or two, the sort of mental process you went through, because I suppose you were talking about retirement as a distant concept then, and then it maybe accelerated a little bit more quickly than
Yeah, it did sort of creep up a bit quicker than I sort of maybe had planned. I mean, you sort of like you said, props can go on a bit longer. It tends to be the case. They can sort of go to their probably mid-30s a bit because they're not doing the sprinting. They're just doing sort of like the plodding around the pitch and doing a few scrums. So you can get a few more years out. And it got to the point where I think I'd maxed out my career. I don't think there was any scope for any more improvement. I knew that I wanted to get into music. That was always on the agenda for me. And I think from being let go at Saints, I think that that took a big toll. As in, I'm like, okay, what am I sort of doing now? And then I was sort of throwing a lifeline at Edinburgh, and then it's I just think it didn't take much for sort of like I had like a couple injuries and I was just sort of a bit like, what am I doing really? So it got to the point about probably just before Christmas time where I just sort of said enough's enough. Like I'm not I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't really enjoying the gym. I wasn't really enjoying training too much. I think boys at Edinburgh could quite clearly tell that I wasn't enjoying things. There seemed to be sort of a running joke for that year. So in the end, I made the call just after Christmas, and I sort of said that's that's me done.
Are there aspects of it that you miss, Nick, or what?
Uh, I've there hasn't been a time where I've thought I miss this. It really hasn't. I because when I was like younger in my career, I always thought you hear about people and they speak about their post sort of sports careers, not just in rugby, but it's in just in general, and they sort of say that they really struggle to sort of adapt to either to life or what they're doing, or finding something to replace what the sport had given them. But for me, I haven't missed it. For me, I haven't missed it. It's been it's been enjoyable. All the aspects that you don't get from playing sport, weekends, I don't know, holidays, not being sore, week to week. As soon as that sort of happens, and you can book something in a weekend, I don't know, in a month in advance, and I enjoy that. I don't miss the constraints that sort of sport give you. So I haven't really missed it.
You've adapted pretty well. Yeah.
I think so.
Seems to me you've got to be in a better position, Nick, doing this and having quit pretty much on your own terms with a fairly clear idea of what you were going to look at next and some energy and some drive behind it than someone who's hanging on there because they really don't know how their life's going to map out once that kind of closed society of professional sport breaks open and lets them out of the door. I mean, it's been tough for a lot of people. You must have come across a stack of people who were in quite difficult places, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were always educated on it when we were playing. You always said life after rugby is going to come, it's going to happen. Like, and I don't know. I guess mentally, I prepared myself for being like, okay, cool, like it's going to happen. Because you do hear stories like you said, throughout my whole career, there were stories of boys who were sort of struggling a bit or sort of like really miss it, and so I guess maybe I don't know. I just prepared myself. I was just like I knew it was going to happen, so I just sort of viewed it as quite black and white, as in sort of like okay, that's done.
I know you were only there for the earlier part of your career, but Saracens of all clubs seem to be pretty clued into this. This whole kind of holistic thing where you weren't just a rugby player, you were part of a family, and therefore there was all sorts of stuff feeding into that family, which basically amounted to player welfare, to well-being, particularly aimed at people who were going to get towards the end of their careers, and they wanted them to have a clear idea of where they were going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were unique in their approach to everything, which is why they've had so much success over the past how many years. I know people have sort of said salary caps and whatever, but unless you've actually been involved in the club, you can see why they've been so successful. The way that they looked after players, especially in that sort of like instance of giving boys sort of opportunity post rugby. A good friend of mine has just retired, and they took all the boys who were injured out to an away trip to meet with all these sort of business owners. So they sort of flew all the business owners over to watch a game. They flew all the injured boys over to watch the game, and then they had sort of like a networking session. So all the business owners were happy watching rugby. All the boys who were injured were happy because they got to go on the piss and sort of do some networking. And you didn't see that in other clubs. Which, yeah, like I said, that's the reason why one of the reasons why they were so successful is, and they thought more outside the box. They didn't think just rugby. Okay, how can we get the team better on the weekend? They thought, okay, how can we make everybody better? Some from like
who were the main movers and shakers in that, Nick?
Well, I think coming in just before my time was obviously Brendan, Ed Griffiths.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine. I mean, I didn't know what it was like before then, so I'd imagine it would have been Ed Griffiths, who was CEO at the time, sort of initiative, who was a mental bloke, incredible guy, but absolutely clean off. Yeah, a lot of time for Ed. He was a what's the word? He was a forward thinker. He just thought ahead of everyone.
Yeah, thought outside the box. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A visionary.
Nigel Ray was exactly the kind of bloke to buy into that. Actually, he seemed to me to be a pretty enlightened kind of guy himself, but he was also bright enough to have learned from all the mistakes he'd made early in the professional era when they were going at a coach's season.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. Sometimes more than that. I mean, it was pretty chaotic there. And the stability that was brought in, and Mark McCall actually represents that thing now because he's been there forever and a day.
Yeah.
I think that combination of individuals was pretty special, actually. And that's at the heart of what Saracens have achieved and will continue to achieve, I think.
I mean, they're the only club that I can think of that have actually created a school in the local area that they're from, which is pretty extraordinary, I think.
Yeah, they seem, they've just sort of built from the bottom upwards, rather than try and sort of like just have a snatch at trying to win, which I think is it gives the greatest longevity to it. I mean,
was that the biggest formative, just in terms of your own career, was that the part of it that you look back at with greatest fondness, or what?
I mean, I've thought about this naturally in the time that I sort of retired, and I actually don't think it is. Because I was just quite young, I didn't really understand the whole sort of system of playing, or like the whole sort of scope of rugby. But I mean, actually, if you would say what's your most fondest sort of time, I'd probably put it actually on Northampton, Saints. Yeah, I have a real soft spot for Northampton. I don't really know what. Good people, very good people. From the person who sits in the top of the stands once a week and buys a ticket to the CEO, just good people. I don't know. There's like a don't know, some a very like community feel to the whole thing. People who love rugby. Northampton. I've got a soft spot for Northampton.
In a sense, that's exactly what someone like Saracens can't replicate, isn't it? That's the one thing. That's the one thing they won't have, because they're in North London, and the biggest thing in North London ain't rugby.
No. I mean, you've got Arsenal and whoever else here, and it's not rugby. You're not going to get the same as Northampton do. I mean, you've got it in places like Bath as well.
Gloucester.
You've got Bath, Exeter. Do you mean all those sort of like Leicester? They'll have Leicester football's quite big actually, but I mean they'll have the same sort of backing. But yeah, like you said, Saracens just don't have the same like community feel, because it's too big of a place, London, to actually get behind. Which is where I think they've tried to make up in other aspects to try and get a better club in that sense. But yeah, not Northampton. I've got a bit of a soft spot for.
I enjoy the fact you will have just offended every Tottenham Hotspurs fan out there by saying Arsenal and whoever else.
Well, they're a considerably better. I mean, I'm not an Arsenal fan or Tottenham, but they're a considerably better team than Tottenham. Tottenham, yeah, they bottle jobs.
Oh, it's getting better. Well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, history would suggest otherwise. Yeah, well, yeah, but like I said, I'm not even an Arsenal fan, so I don't mind who the debate in North London. They can fight it out for themselves.
I should say that my brother, who I said off air I'd put you in touch with, is a devout Spurs fan. So let's hope that let's hope he's not listening to this. Otherwise, he may put you in the wrong direction. Music.
That's absolutely fine. I don't mind a Spurs fan or an Arsenal fan. Yeah, I don't mind.
Talk to me a little bit about music, like so TV and film, but presumably that there are sort of sub-verticals within that, and you want to narrow down towards a particular genre or sector within it, etc., or are you keeping your options open at the moment?
I mean, I think by and large I'm keeping my options quite open. I kind of wanted to go down the more producing of dance music and things like that originally, and then I enrolled in a master's in London in music production, which I actually graduated last week, which is nice.
Congratulations.
But so about halfway through the year we did a module on writing to picture, which is called sync in music, like you sync the music to picture. So it's called sync music, and I instantly just got hooked onto it. I was like, this is awesome to have a visual on screen and just sort of compose and make music and write sounds to it. I just seem to like more than just sort of having house music sort of banged against my head for 5-6 hours a day. So yeah, I mean, it's only become quite recent that I sort of thought about sort of writing to picture. And so now, yeah, I'm trying to reach out to. So I've actually been writing to adverts. So that's how I built a portfolio writing music to adverts. That's why I sort of finished my master's year, my portfolio of basically ripping adverts off YouTube and just composing music to them. So I mean, I imagine the logical route hopefully will be to adverts, then to TV, then to film. But I mean, I spoke to a guy who's been working in the music industry for 20 odd years, and I sort of like, how do you get success? Like, was this how you planned is this how you thought your career was going to go? And he was like, it is absolute chaos. He said that there's been no logical path to anything that I've ever done. It has just been the most random sort of turn of events that have just led me down a path that I never thought would go. So I'd imagine it would be quite similar to that, which is quite. I mean, it's a bit nerving.
A bit familiar to journalism as well.
Yes, yeah, I'd imagine it probably would be. Yeah, it would be quite similar. Yeah, probably is actually. It's just yeah, I guess anything that's sort of quite freelancy, I guess it's probably going to have that sort of randomness sort of attached to it, and the unknowing of where it's going to go. So I'm keeping my options open. I mean, because I come from an electronic music the point of view, because I've got a load of synthesizers around and stuff. I like the electronic side of things. I like sort of coming up with weird sound design stuff that so it's probably less orchestrally focused, or sort of classically focused, and more sort of on sort of sound design, weird ambient sort of textures, things like that.
When you talk about synthesizers, does Emerson, Lake and Palmer mean anything to you as a group? Do you go back and listen to that stuff or not?
You old fart.
I don't. Sorry.
I'm
having good. Who's that? Sorry.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Keith Emerson.
Keith Emerson. Good.
Yeah. He was slightly off the wall as well.
Yeah,
there we go. Like a long way off the wall.
He used to plunge swords into his organ.
Bloody hell.
I mean, his keyboard organ I'm talking about here. I mean,
Oh, I see. Not
we're
his
not
actual.
talking about
Not his own
self-mutilation.
organs. Yeah, that was
Um,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's got a lot of. Yeah, probably.
Well,
Hopefully.
worth a listen. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like a bit of a rock star guy.
he was very big in the 1970s. What were you doing in the 1970s, Nick?
he was about 20 years away.
Yeah, okay. It was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks quite rock and roll. Not at the these days in music. Rock and roll sort of yeah, a bit. It's more sort of about I'm not going to say because it's a podcast, isn't it?
In terms of like, and I won't delve too deep, but I don't know, composers that you like, or particular film scores or picture scores, whether it be TV, film. Are there any that you sort of pretty obsessed with? Because I mean, I don't want to talk about my brother too much, but he's a film music composer himself. He listens to certain scores just on repeat, effectively.
I don't actually. That's not actually a bad idea to really get into that. I mean, there are other artists who may score for things. Do you know Aphex Twin?
Yeah.
Aphex Twin. Another guy called Floating Points.
Floating Points. I know about Floating Points.
Oh, really? Go on.
I do. Well, he recorded an album. Well, I suppose you'd call it a crossover album with the great jazz saxophonist Pharoah Sanders and the London Symphony Orchestra, and it's called Promises, and it's extraordinarily good.
Yes.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, I didn't know he did it with the.
So just try and keep up, Nick.
That was quite recent, actually. Like 2020 or something.
Yeah, well, it's quite recent. Maybe 2022. I think it was pretty much the last album that Pharoah Sanders recorded because he was in his 80s at the time.
Oh, yeah.
He played with John Coltrane and what have you. I mean, let's talk about this all day.
2021 Promises. There you go.
Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of music. Wonderful.
Yeah. I mean that's sort of the electronic side.
I take it he wasn't christened Floating Points.
No, his name's is it Sam Shepard, I think.
Yeah, wouldn't you have stuck with Sam Shepard if you were him?
Boring. I don't know.
This is the thing, Nick. What are you doing with Nick Auterac if you make it? Are you changing it?
Probably not. No, I just keep it. It's quite unique. Quite nice. Yeah, Sam Shepard. That's his name. I quite like my name. I don't think I'll change it.
Don't need a stage name or an artist name or anything like that.
Nah, I don't think so. I think people will like the name. It's quite unique. There's no other Auteracs in the world, so no one's going to steal it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it, I think.
Well, if you've tuned in for a rugby podcast, I can only apologise up until this point.
Yeah, not much rugby.
I reckon let's do the quickfire question section, which is a little bit rugby, a little bit not rugby, Nick. Let's power through them. First one is slightly related to the question I just asked you. Your nickname.
Manchild was quite a common one.
I'm guessing
that was Paul Gustard when I was at Saracens when I was really young, 17. I was the man of a body, face of a child, so Manchild it was.
What did you weigh at 17 years old?
I remember weighing like 123 or something kilos. Yeah, I remember weighing in one game and I was like, God, that's quite yeah, that's pretty large.
What's the heaviest you ever got to?
Probably about that. I reckon. And I finished my career about 122, 123. Probably on the
I'm guessing you've trimmed down a tiny bit now.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. I've actually just signed up for a half Ironman, so I'm gonna have to trim down even a bit more.
Wow.
Next June. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully trim it. I'm still a bit heavy though. I'm about 117, so I haven't trimmed down that much. But so I need to.
You will trim down during the half Ironman, of course.
You probably will as well. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to do a bit of training if I'm gonna get there. So yeah, I don't think I'm able to run it at that. That'd be a bit too big.
Were you always a prop, rugby wise?
There or thereabout. Apart from school, when they just put the big kid in the middle of the pitch and say run. So I was a centre actually at school because I was bigger than most kids. Yeah, pretty much prop through and through. Just love the prop life. Yeah.
An Ironman is what? It's a 4K swim roughly. It's
full Ironman is it's like
180
180 kilometer cycle and then a marathon, and then half that for a half Ironman, which isn't too bad actually. It's down in Nice in south of France, so that'd be nice. June, a bit of sun.
Too bad. That in Nice doesn't sound too bad, to be fair. Although if you're doing it in June, you may roast.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, I mean, I mean, all Ironmans, they're set in such lovely places. Apart from, I know they do one of
the hills.
Yeah, there's it is quite hilly, that one. But yeah, the only other, I mean, the one in England they do in Bolton, which I don't know. Me personally.
Oh, that really is glamour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't they do an in Merthyr Tydfil as well?
Somewhere, yeah. I know. I didn't sign up to that one, unsurprisingly. No, I mean, not to offend anyone from Bolton. Please don't.
Well, you've already wiped out the Tottenham side of North London.
Just offending half the country.
Bolton is small beer by comparison.
Yeah, maybe I should have. What should I say from now?
Or just move to France.
Oh,
best rugby memory.
It probably actually isn't. It isn't playing rugby. I'll do a rugby one, non-rugby one. Non-rugby ones. We had a team trip in 2019 to Ibiza with Harlequins, and that was we rented a couple yachts, and that was it was a great few days. And yeah, if I could go back to one sort of time in my career, it probably would have been around that time. That was a good team trip. A rugby. Rugby probably actually we lost to Clermont in a European quarterfinal, and the atmosphere was like nothing nothing experienced before, nothing I had experienced since. It was an amazing place to play, and I remember after the game just making sure I stayed up for a bit longer because they won, so all the fans didn't disappear and they were chanting and they were just going crazy. And I remember just sort of making sure I took my time going around the pitch just to soak it all in. So I was like, that's pretty. I didn't know the capacity of the Clermont ground, but it felt like an arena of just crazy people. So yeah, that was a pretty special memory.
Who was that with?
That was at Harlequins, I think.
Harlequins,
yeah. Yeah, that was good.
Harlequins always felt that they were misunderstood, and they were much more of a club of the people than was represented in the press, largely by me, I have to say, and all their city associations and big money and what have you. But of course, you've knocked the whole thing on the head, haven't you? By saying, well, we went off for a bit of a lads' weekend and hired a couple of yachts. Well, that can't be. I mean, that is Harlequins.
That is Harlequins. Yeah,
that is Harlequins. That is Will Carling.
It is. Well, I mean, that's what you get being so close to London, or in London. That it's just, yeah. I'm not going to say too much more. I'll end up getting
I'm coming at this from a West Country perspective. You understand?
Yes, like yeah, and they've always had that like same. They always looking in from before it's Harlequins. They always had the same sort of what's the word? Like sort of aura about them.
Sense of entitlement.
Yeah,
I don't want to say entitlement because that will get me in trouble. But they had an aura about them, a sort of a confidence, which I respected, and I still think they do. They have sort of like a confidence and a sort of a swag about them. I mean, it's probably led by the Danny Kerr and Joe Marlers of the team, but.
It goes back to the amateur era, Nick. It doesn't hold water anymore. In fairness, I mean, crikey, Jason Leonard turned up there, so I mean, you don't get much more down to earth than Jason.
Yes,
so.
I was going to say, Chris, Bath, sense of entitlement, Farley House, all the rest of it. Come on.
Well, if you want that discussion with Gareth Chilcott and Roger Spurrell, then it's
entirely one or two of your discussions with Gareth Chilcott, and it didn't go very well for you, mate. I seem to remember you ended up on your ass.
Yeah, that wasn't the best move I ever made, trying to jump him from behind a curtain. in a hotel lobby. That was really dumb, actually.
Slap the wrong bloke on the back of the head.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not doing the random rugby 15. So I don't want to go. I don't want to go into this. Let's just say I beat a tactical retreat.
Aren't we?
Well, we are only on question 3 out of 15, so we're making strong headway, lads.
Okay.
I kind of hope the answer to this question is an anecdote from Ibiza, but we'll see. Most embarrassing rugby memory.
I don't think most embarrassing.
Your hesitation must be because either props are incapable of getting embarrassed as people, or a lie.
I'm sorry, I really can't even think of an embarrassing time.
We'll move on.
Yeah, sorry, I mean,
It'll come to you, Nick. Don't worry.
It'll come to me.
We'll come back to it. Pre-game tune.
What's a good pre-game? Dished by Purple Disco Machine. That's a pretty upbeat. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that one.
Know that one, Chewy?
Yeah. It's right up the top there with that Frank Sinatra song.
Yeah. Or Diplo on My Mind. That was pretty.
And Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Post-game meal.
Waitrose battered fish fingers.
What?
I'd always after every game I enjoyed Waitrose do the best food, and
there speaks a true Harlequin.
And yeah. Oh, I don't know, Bath they love their Waitrose on there, but after a game, I just walk around Waitrose and just buy whatever I sort of fancied eating at that moment. Battered fish fingers were usually top of my list most of the time.
Just plain battered fish fingers.
I mean, nothing plain about them.
They're not plain. They're from Waitrose.
Got a question answered. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they got a sprinkle of snow leopard crumb on them. Didn't you know?
I'd get other things as well, like I don't know, mac and cheese, like their mac and cheese.
Okay.
I'd get like a combination of things, but always the thing I came back to was my battered fish fingers.
Your battered fish fingers, lovely. Best player you've played against?
I don't know. Charlie Ewels.
Charlie Ewels.
Yeah, okay. Charlie Ewels.
Nice. Best player you played with?
Lewis Ludlam at Saints, Northampton. I really enjoyed playing with him. Tough guy. One of the people who would speak and get you motivated, but he'd be the first person to back it up. He probably doesn't even know that I think that. But just thinking about it. I'm sure there are plenty of others, but
he does have a real reputation for exactly as you've described him, though. That he's he's one of those blokes who seems to command an enormous amount of respect from the people around him.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, he's a good bloke. He speaks well, and then he just goes out and just kamikazes everything that he can see. So I mean, that's essentially the crux of being a rugby player. So I think he nails it. I mean, I don't know how much longer his body's going to hold up or he's going to last doing that.
He'll soon find out in France, won't he?
He will, yeah. Which I think he's doing really well actually over there. I go with my friend Lewis Ludlam.
Favorite player right now, other than Lewis Ludlam?
The player I respect the most is Tom Dunn at Bath.
Nice.
He has a head. He quite literally has a little puddle of fluid in the top of his head from where he's just hit his head on so many things, and he continues to graft every week. And he's one of the toughest people I've sort of like seen in my rugby career. And I think that takes huge admiration. The fact that his head is quite literally telling him to stop, and he's just continuing to whack his way through every single weekend. Yeah, we'll go with Dunny, Tom Dunn.
I think that's an interesting call, actually. I remember a couple of seasons ago, 2 or 3, whenever it was, and they got absolutely laced up at Gloucester by 50 points.
Oh yeah,
which is painful for them. And I don't know whether Tom was captain. He might have been captain that day.
Yeah.
But he did not come on the TV afterwards and say, "Well, the best thing about this is we got another game next week and we can get back on the horse," or any of the stuff that people. He was just bitterly, bitterly disappointed. I mean, to the point of embarrassed.
Yeah,
And said so. And it was a really, I thought, fair play to the bloke, because he bared his soul a bit. And it's not easy to do when you've got a microphone stuck under your nose or in his beard or whatever it was at that point. But he was, it was a really honest response to a terrible afternoon. And I respected him for that, I must say.
Yeah, well, he is a Bath lad through and through. So losing that much to Gloucester will be probably will hurt him more than most. But yeah, he's a tough guy. He doesn't mess around. He's like, he's got a puddle on his head. I'm like just yeah. I'm like he's got like a little of fluid. I'm like, yeah, probably shouldn't be. Yeah, that is probably your body rejecting what you're doing.
That's such a horrible image. Do you think the bald spot is just because of nerve endings that just no longer exist because they're not?
Yeah. Dunny is my Yeah, I'll go with Dunny for my favourite current player.
Good choice. Favourite stadium?
Sorry, my dog's barking.
Oh,
Kira. Sorry.
That's all right.
Favorite stadium. We already touched on that. Probably the Claremont. That was pretty. That was a very special day. Although I like closely followed by the Rec. I think it was a special place to play. I mean, it's a bit. I mean, it's quite run down. It's a bit quite run down. It's probably a bit of an understatement itself. But it's so much character and so much history to it that no other ground sort of, especially in the Premiership, really compares to it being that sort of in the city. So yeah, closely followed by Bath's Rec, I reckon.
Favorite gym exercise?
What do I enjoy? This is really nauseous. I like a military. I like an overhead shoulder press, like a barbell military press. Really boring, I know, but very naughty question. But
not unexpected. Unexpected, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm quite strong at it, and
nice.
Very strong at it.
Occupation if rugby didn't exist. I suppose that's easy.
Yeah, that would be my music. I guess, I mean, if we're not going to do music, I mean, there are other options as well that I sort of want to go down. Huge coffee fan. I'd love to have gotten to the sort of production of and roasting of coffee. Production probably not so much over here, but roasting it. Yeah, I love my coffee. Or a chef as well. Love to have been a chef. Well, there's still plenty of time.
Yeah. Superstitions.
I could never listen to music on match day, which is a bit of a. It had to be either in the if it was playing in the team changing room, that was fine. But on the way to the game, I wouldn't put any music on, or I'd never listen to any headphones.
So it wasn't a case of you chucking the speaker out of the changing room every game.
No, I couldn't do that. It was almost I could reason it with myself because it was out of my control, whereas I could control my car playing music there, so there was dead silent. Actually, I used to listen to LBC, the most racist radio station in the land. I wouldn't. I wouldn't listen for those reasons. I just want to acknowledge that before people think I'm a big racist for listening to LBC. It's just I guaranteed it had no music. That's my superstition. So
no, that was a superstition. You didn't want to listen to music.
Yeah,
on a game day at all.
On a game day, so I couldn't wake up and listen to any music. So I had to have every speaker turned. Like,
okay,
don't know why. I really don't know why. I guess it's about superstition. You don't know why.
Exactly. Rugby law you would change.
I really hate the two laws. I hate how if a maul collapses, it goes to the opposition. I think if a maul collapses, I think everyone should just they should clear the thing up and keep playing on. And I don't like the new law. If it's carried over the ball, if it's carried over and held up, it's a kick out. I think it should go to a tap, like a not a scrum, because I agree scrums take a while. I think it should be like a tap and you have a free tap and go or something on the 5 meter line, so you have another go at having a crack. I just think you know, when teams put a load of effort in and it just gets held up and it's like, oh, what an anticlimax. Whereas if it's actually like, okay, held up, okay, you can have another go because you've actually putting pressure on, keeps pressure on, probably will get a more of a high scoring game. Whereas if you kick it out, it just like all the momentum and the excitement sort of just dissipates a bit.
That maul law, I really don't get.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, it is beyond weird that
It
you
is.
can that the only time you can actually collapse a maul is when the referee shouts maul.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess at that point it's already so like it's sort of gone down and no one has to move. I mean, I think it's the worst referee part on the pitch, the mauls. I mean, I still watch it and sort of like the amount of times people it's called swimming up the side, sort of swim up the side and sort of just come in and manage to like pull it to the ground and like I mean, people cheat well. Basically, it's just cheating well. I'm surprised it hasn't been clocked on yet, or it might have been. They might have brought it up. I don't know.
It used to go to the side moving forward. That was the whole contest was a pushing contest and
Yes.
a grappling contest.
Whereas now they're sort of like say just don't change your bind and sort of like so if the maul goes forward, people are sort of people don't really move and they let the maul goes past them a bit and then they end up
and
on
they
the
join
side.
on the back.
Yeah, and like if the ref doesn't pick it, refs don't often pick it up, and then that's where I think it's mauling's people still do good mauls, but it's sort of like it could be much more of a weapon. I think if it was just I'm being very noisy and technical, although my second row friends would love me for talking about this.
I mean, if you look back, I remember the late 1980s when Buck Shelford was captain of the All Blacks. They had they were almost like mini mauls, but the ball transference was incredibly quick.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
And the whole dynamism of the thing. I mean, it was a serious attacking threat that you could use from anywhere on the pitch. They were fantastic at it. It wasn't necessarily a numbers game. It was just a dynamic rolling maul involving people who really knew what they were doing, and it was terrific to watch. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's not really sort of done much.
No,
I guess now.
Now the Springboks might do it to make a point in their own half at some point. At some point during a game. I mean, but
they can then become the highlight of the world's rugby media for like a few days after. But yeah, you're right. They might employ it. Razzie guy's probably watching right now and planning his next.
Yeah, well, he's going to send out a tweet about you pretty much because he's a Tottenham Hotspur supporter as well.
Tottenham Hotspur LBG.
And lastly, in by far the longest quickfire question round we've ever done.
Yes,
not your fault. Best thing about working in rugby.
That's not working in rugby. Probably either the occasions or the values it teaches you. Probably one of the going forward outside of rugby, the values it teaches you. And probably when you're doing it, probably just the momentous occasions of games you get to play.
How are you applying? And this is sort of my last question, actually. The values it teaches you to what you do now. Not just that, but also I suppose you were used to having a daily, got to get out of bed, do this, and a daily active calling. Obviously, you have a calling. Don't get me wrong, but it sounds like a lot of that is self motivation as well. I think you have the guarantee of the regular income and etc. So how are you sort of applying those values from rugby to now?
I think because we were playing rugby and sport at the top level, and you got to play with some of the best players in the world, the Owen Farrells and the Courtney Laws and the people like that, and you sort of see what it takes to be the best in the world. You see the dedication that it sort of takes, and you realize that if you really want to be good at something, like it's not easy. It's by no means easy. So I guess being around those sort of environments every day, you appreciate sort of like if I'm going to be good at something after rugby, I need to apply the same sort of like work ethic, the same sort of graft as all those boys were doing, and when I was playing. Obviously in different aspects. I mean, I'm not training in the gym super hard, but I'm like the same sort of work ethic, dedication to trying to improve and get better in my music and everything like that. That's something that's really instilled from you from the age of 15 when you first sign up to the academy. So yeah, those are probably some good lessons that I've sort of or trying to take forward anyway. Yeah.
100%. Well, look, obviously, it's sorry. Go on, Chewy. Do you have one more question?
I was going to say that just on a slightly broader issue around rugby, or around the way rugby is played now, can you foresee a time when the set piece is diminished or marginalized or rendered sort of broadly an afterthought? Or I mean, I'm not talking about going all the way into rugby league land, but the influence of the union set pieces, as you have performed it, and we all sort of know and love it. Can you see it withering on the vine at all, or do you think it will always be central to the sport?
I think it will. I mean, unless there's natural rule change, like in league, where it's become just a bit sort of nothingness. I can't see it. I think rugby or sport probably, but I know more about rugby. But it always has sort of like what's the word? It's sort of like things come. Yeah, cycle. That's it. So like so I'd imagine if people started to sort of pay less attention to the scrum, everyone may follow for a few years, and then suddenly a team will go, actually, we can attack here. We'll come round again, and we'll get some big props, and we'll demolish the league by getting some sort of good scrums. So I'd imagine that will be the cycle that it would take if it was to go that way. I mean, you just have to look at if I remember in the Premiership, it used to be sort of about like speed and sort of like quick people and fit rugby players, and then the French team started to get some like big guys, and then to compete in Europe, the Premiership then went to, okay, we need to get some big guys to try and compete, and then eventually it sort of went to everyone in the Premiership was like, okay, we need to bulk up our squad. And then when defenses started getting better, they were like, actually, we need fitter people again. So everyone started to sort of like get smaller people, and then you sort of you have this sort of continuous cycle of sort of like of the way rugby sort of played, and in the you have sort of like the and right now it's quite exciting. You've got some big guys, and you've got some people who are playing some good attacking rugby. And because the defense was just getting too good, and it was probably about when Harlequins sort of won the Premiership, people started to realize, oh god, attacking rugby is the way forward. And now it's all sort of about attacking rugby, and then how to break down defenses. And I'd imagine in a few years, defenses will get even better, and then we'll have the same cycle again. So I'd imagine from a set piece point of view, it will be very similar. If you were to sort of take away set piece, if that makes sense. I hope.
New tune for you, Nick. No scrum, no win.
No scrum, no win. Oh yeah, that's my first EP.
Scrum, no win. Is it your guess, given the Springbok supremacy in this area at the moment, and I mean, obviously the whole bomb squad strategy is a big part of what they do. But even if there was no bomb squad, I mean, if they started with, Oxenche and Franz Malherbe, I mean, they're big, mighty scrummagers. Is it your suspicion that people have to match them precisely, match them like for like, and do what they do? Or could we get back to, I mean, this will be before your time, but the 97 Lions, that test series was very famous for picking two small props. The Lions picked two small props, much against expectations ahead of the tour, to take on Osterant and Adrian Garvey, because they were seen as the absolute pointy end of what the Springboks were going to do. And Tom Smith and Wallace sort of befuddled them a little bit. Because they were smaller and just did different things. It was a different scrummaging approach. What do you think would be the answer now?
Good question. I think from a scrum, you have to meet fire with fire. You can't. I don't think you can work. You can't
You can't game it.
You can't They've made the scrum so much that little can sort of go wrong in comparison to say 20, 30 years ago. Sure. Before they used to sort of run in to each other, whereas now it's sort of like there's no real way about it. You just have to technically be very good and very strong. If you're not big, there's no way that you can sort of work around it really.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The cadence is so precise and so micromanaged that you can't sort of game the system very easily, I don't think.
There's not really too many ways you can cheat around it, which is good because I do think there are less ways in which the scrum can stop it, or like there's less sort of like going to the floor and things like that. I think it has actually benefited the consistency, or like the not the consistency, the how quickly the speed of the game,
the continuity of it.
Continuity, yeah, that's the word. Yeah. So I'd imagine to your question, sort of how do you sort of meet sort of compete against them? I think you just have to meet far.
Just eat less salad.
Eat less salad, eat more red meat, and I think I'd imagine I'm not in any way in conversation with or I don't know what the RFU are doing, but I'd imagine they will be creating some pathways to find and produce good props.
The under 20s props are big. I mean, the guy for Sogbon and the guy at Sale, Poku for sure, is it? I mean, they're not small. I mean, they're very, very powerful.
They are, yeah. No,
particularly for Sogbon, he's just ridiculously big.
Big old guy. I'd imagine that the RFU are looking to target that. And I know an old teammate of mine, Nathan Catt, has been brought in by the RFU to help with the scrum. So I think I don't know, I'm speculating, but
he was a good player betrayed by injuries, wasn't he? He had the makings of something very, very good as a young player.
He did, yeah. Even just before he retired, he was playing some great rugby. He just had a horrible neck problem, which I think hampered his hampered some of his seasons. But yeah, I'm really happy for him because he's now got a really good job trying to combat the South African rugby.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think we need to do a little 5-10 minute debrief on the England squad. And from what you tell me, well, you're a little bit out of touch, so I won't make you endure our ramblings for that. But massive thank you for joining us. I would love to be able to stay in touch, music related, and obviously put you in touch with my network, and that's something to sort of take off air as well. But I'll drop you a message about that, and yeah, let's stay in touch anyway. Great to hear about your fascinating projects post retirement. I hope that they, see you on the big screen in some way soon, even if it's just your name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, yeah, thank you for having me on, and I'll please do. Just send me your if you send me your brother's details and yourself, and I'll because I'm quickly realizing it's sort of more not what you know, it's who you know. So I'm just meet as many people as I sort of can.
Exactly.
And Nick will send you some links to Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums. So you don't leave empty-handed.
That's wicked.
Yeah. You don't open them.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you guys. It's quite nice to talk about rugby. I just I guess I don't really speak about it too much, but it's been quite nice to sort of refresh my mind in what's going on. I should probably keep up with it more often. Actually, it's quite a nice sport, isn't it? I should. But it is. It's sort of very passionate people and good people, and I'll restart my TNT Sports subscription and start watching a bit of
Well, you better look sharp because Waitrose closes in 20 minutes.
It does, yes. No, you're right. I need to get my fish fingers for the my evening meal. Righty, guys. Well, yeah, thank you for having me. And
no, thanks so much, Nick. Thank you.
Good speaking to you, Nick. Well done.
How do I leave this, by the way?
Thanks very much.
He's not good with tech either. Do you want me to remove? I'll remove you.
I'll leave there. Cool. All right, thanks, guys. Bye-bye then.
Cheers, Nick.
Thanks so much, Nick. Goodness me. Guys, let's do 5-10 minutes very, very quickly about the England squad. It would be wrong not to. I have my opinions. They are generally probably aligned with yours, but I'm going to sort of neutrally open the floor. What are our thoughts on the autumn international squad before we get into the specifics?
Well, I don't think there are many surprises in it. I think Borthwick is fairly set in his way of thinking around the general shape of the squad. I mean, you can always argue that he's ignored 2, 3, 4, maybe up to half a dozen players who at the moment are playing the house down.
Yeah.
And he's picked players who either aren't playing at all or haven't played a fat lot. I mean, it's, Henry Slade will be the classic example of not doing much. But there again, do you want to go into an autumn international without a player as with Slade's experience and know-how and his whole background in the squad? So, but if you look at Ogre and Ibatoya and a bunch of players up and down the country, actually. Tom Willis has had a lot of mentions recently, and he's not appeared. The Zach Mercer ship has sailed by the looks of it anyway. So there are always going to be players who are performing extremely well in very, very different environments and contexts, and none of them have made it. There aren't many bolters in that squad.
No, I mean, the Slade thing is intriguing to me because, obviously he was a guy who wasn't good enough to make the World Cup squad, and subsequently he's become the linchpin of the Blitz defence. Now, my way of looking at it is that I take the fact that strength and conditioning has moved on, it's sharper and shorter and sharper and so on. But when you haven't played for the entire season, to come back and be parachuted, perhaps after just one game, into a game against the All Blacks strikes me as taking a significant gamble. And I believe that I think Henry's certainly 32, if not 33. I think he's 32. I think that they need to look, if they're working a blitz defense, the problem with England is that they seem to be so mono in what they do. It's dependent on Henry Slade being in the 13 shirt. It used to be dependent on Manu Tuilagi being in the 12 shirt. And they have to start thinking outside of the square more and have people who can also play that position. Now, Jerry Guscott made a very, very persuasive argument for Tommy Freeman going there. Jerry's view, I think, is that anybody who's an international back or a midfield back should be able to fulfill that role to some degree. Freeman obviously has the physical attributes to be able to do it. He has the athleticism and size. So, there are just times where England seem to get stuck in a certain mindset. And the same applies to George Ford for me. Why would you pick George when he's had no game time, when you've got Marcus Smith playing extremely well?
It strikes me that they don't have really any firm ideas. I mean, Ollie Lawrence is a classic example. Bath preferred to play him as a 13.
Yeah.
They prefer to play Max Ajomo at 12 or this Will Buck guy or Cameron Redpath or whatever it is. So they see Lawrence, and I can understand it. I can understand that Lawrence is a very, very threatening runner in soft underbelly areas of the field. Not that any areas of the field the underbellies are that soft anywhere on the pitch these days, but that was the old system, wasn't it? We've had this discussion a million times. It's the old system of having a second 5/8, as the All Blacks would have called it, and a powerhouse centre in, one out from there in the less congested areas of the field. If you're going to run Lawrence as a truck it up man, then okay. That's another way of doing it. But Bath don't do that now.
And you get these anomalies, and Northampton aren't playing Tommy Freeman for the most part, aren't playing him at 13. He's out on the wing. Yeah. So, you get these anomalies all the way through. And, one of the things that isn't talked about in this central contracts anywhere near enough is what sort of influence, if any at all, the national coach will have on where players play, because it is significant, massively so.
Well, it's a little bit like the deal with the championship clubs, isn't it? Or the professional game agreement, whatever you want to call it. These things always seem to beg more questions than they answer. It's, there's just such a big grey area around. And it was why Rob Baxter was saying in the build-up to the signing of the player agreement and the central contracts, etc., he did have some hesitancy about him in throwing his full weight behind it, because he could see the grey areas even if he couldn't see his way through them. he could see
Chris,
grey areas there.
they're not just grey areas, they're bloody black holes. I mean, the idea of what's going on at the moment with the PGP and the fact that the championship clubs were never a part of it is just a total nonsense. How can you join something up when you bloody sunder all the links? Anyway.
That's probably one for another day. But
I was going to say,
I do think you're right about the player contracts thing. I mean, and it is. We are not absolutely sure, are we, how much shout Borthwick has in terms of player positions. I mean, crikey, I hesitate to use the two words in such close conjunction, but Sam and Burgess was a classic example, wasn't he? Because Bath were playing him in a completely different position to the one England wanted him in. Yeah. I mean, they were playing him as a forward when England wanted him as a back.
Yeah.
So the joined-up thinking there was not terribly joined up, you have to say. And now we've still got a bit of confusion, and we've just raised an issue of Freeman, of Ollie Lawrence. Do England want these people as a 12, a 13, an 11, a 15, whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
And who makes the call? Because if it, in the end, if it doesn't suit Bath or Exeter or whoever on a given Saturday afternoon, or Northampton, why would the coach say, I really want to put Tommy Freeman on my left wing today or at fullback today, but I can't because Steve Borthwick, who doesn't have another game with this bloke for X number of weeks or months, possibly, because he doesn't want him playing there. Well,
and why would the RFU be paying 160k for the privilege?
It's not going to happen.
It does. None of it makes any sense. None. So there we go. Another autumn, which starts with a degree of confusion. It seems to be ever thus with the English rugby. So,
yeah. I mean, look,
but I thought Jerry's point about Freeman was very good, actually.
Further to that, I mean, we could put Freeman as a 12. Realistically, if you're putting him in the midfield, it's where he's played for Northampton as a 13. The four midfielders are Lazowski, Slade, Lawrence, and Northmore. I'm right in saying. All four are 13s. So we've picked 4 13s in the squad. Presumably Lawrence is going to go 12 as a result.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Unless you put Lazowski at 12 or I don't know. But meanwhile, you've got Lennox and Yanwu, who is obviously absolutely tearing it up for Quins. I know it's early days, but we talk about bolters.
Definitely early days.
It's very early days, but there are no bolters in the backline whatsoever. I mean, Ibitoye would be another one who just hasn't been picked. And so I say I hadn't said my opinions yet. I was actually very, very underwhelmed with a squad that I thought might put a little bit more impetus back into the England process and drive a little bit more faith than it has, especially given all the coaching uncertainty.
The bloke I thought might make it just on if you're going to make a call on the strength of very recent performances, but that Gabriel Ogre is playing some rugby at the moment, and he has got a mobility and a ground coverage and a skill set which does set him apart. I thought Jamie George, right from the first time I saw him, was going to win a whole stack of caps. I remember arguing with Stuart Lancaster about it when he didn't initially pick him for the World Cup. I mean, terrific player, hell of a player, but he's getting on a bit now, Jamie. And I don't think he would admit that he has the kind of ground coverage that Ogre has. I mean, he is now. Theo Dan is a very mobile hooker. That's fair enough. Luke Cowan-Dickey is brilliant in other areas, but he's not. We're not talking about a guy with the same kind of speed across the field. It depends what you're looking for, of course. But Ogre, I would have thought would have certainly have deserved a place in that squad, even if he didn't get the play. I think he should be in the family, so to speak.
Which of the others would you have dropped for him coming in?
I think I would probably on current form, I think Dan is the least impressive. However, he's young and he's had his injury issues and all that kind of thing, and he's going to be a big contender going forward. I think we might have seen, much as I admire Cowan-Dickey in many ways, I think we might have seen the best of him. I don't see where he gets better.
I guess it will be brought in for his size and the fact that he's been a prop, and they're going to be playing against some pretty formidable front rows. So.
Well, indeed.
But yeah, I take your point. I mean, he is playing the house down, Ogre, no question.
Yeah.
But there again, he's playing in an environment which encourages him to do the things he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, Bristol are playing some not the most reliable form of rugby you've ever seen. You would think you might call it high risk and high reward, mightn't you? I mean, it's an extraordinary approach, but they're sticking with it because on paper they're not the most. You don't look at that Bristol team sheet and think, Jesus Christ, that's a good side. That is a really, really strong side. Not like a Saracen side that chucks all their internationals in or whatever it is. They're not in that league individually. But they are an exciting side to watch. My goodness.
That's one name. I think we've obviously alluded to a couple of the players in the back line. We mentioned Opoku Forger and Asogbon. Ted Hill would be another one.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm astonished.
What does he have to do at this point? I think that's a fairly criminal omission, actually. Are there any other names? Just to avoid
I mean, Urbano for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Hill, I agree with entirely that he should be in. You need two players. You've got 2 sixes in Hill and Cunningham South, who could push each other all the way to being really outstanding players. And I don't understand Hill's omission. I don't understand Urbano's omission. I'm not totally sold on Ellis Genge. I think that he got his deficiencies were highlighted clearly in that game between Gloucester and Bristol as a scrummager. And I think that, England need to pay attention to getting their scrum solid. Because they've got they've got good backs and exciting backs, and they need that sort of platform to play off.
Yeah.
They don't want they don't want to be messing around on a penalty exchange, constant penalty exchange over scrum, over scrum infractions and so on and so forth. They need to be sound. And at the moment, my fear is that they're still deficient.
I'll obviously circle back to this probably in a couple of weeks when it gets close to autumn international selection. Probably not the most encouraging squads that Steve Borthwick could have injected into his fans' minds, but still potential for an exciting backline to be put together there as we've mentioned. And with Gallagher Premiership rounds to come, there could be changes and people drafted in, certainly, hopefully, some of the names that we've mentioned. Guys, great to record today. Nick was good fun as we thought he'd be. I think we'll probably have a slightly more traditional rugby discussion next week, but I look forward to seeing you both then. Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.